Okay, if you join me now, maybe you're watching this later, but a question arose today that had me thinking, and I thought I would go live and talk about it a little bit, which is really, here's was the comment that this person gets bored of just practicing all the time and needs to develop a purpose for playing, for practicing. You know, we all get down sometimes when we play and we get frustrated with ourselves or with our practice or with our life or whatever it might be. And, you know, sometimes we kind of forget the reason why we play in the first place. And, you know, sometimes it kind of seems like it's a chore like everything else that we do. And so I thought it would be nice to maybe go live today and just talk to you a little bit about that. Hey, Jeff, how you doing, bud? And just chat about that with you a little bit. Maybe get a little insight back and forth on this as well. Rock and Rob is here. Imagine 76 is here. How you doing? Good to see you. So Mike Rudolph is here. How you doing, Mike? Arthur is here. Monty, Nasser is here. Very good. So we already have a whole lot of people here, which is great. So David is here. So hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, I'm just going live impromptu for a few minutes. I had a free few minutes, and I thought I would just chat with you a little bit about trying to continue to have a purpose for your practice, a purpose for your playing. Because sometimes, I'll just recap what I had said earlier. I got a message today on someone that I know who is struggling with playing and practicing and finding a reason why to do this. So I thought it'd be nice to maybe chat with you a little bit about that and see if I can't help you to get that motivation going again. And any comments that you might have, we'll talk back and forth and see if we can't maybe help some people out there. So the big thing is understanding that we know, you know, if you play guitar, that guitar is a lifelong journey, right? I mean, you know, I always joke with students and say, like, whenever I teach, you know, guitar classes, I'll start off by saying one of the first things I'll say is, now you have to understand that you have to practice on the days that you eat. And then, of course, everybody laughs. Although I'm really not kidding that much when I say that. I mean, you really do have to practice a lot, right? I mean, it's not something that you can, you know, just do here and there and really develop, but that's the first step of this purpose I want to talk about, okay? I'm now, at this time of doing this, I'm 52 years old. My growing up and wanting to learn how to play guitar, I was listening to players like, you know, when I first started, you know, really understanding music before I started playing guitar, but I was really into music. You know, I was into Jimi Hendrix and you know, Led Zeppelin and you know, all those Kansas, Styx, all that stuff. And then when I started playing guitar, then there was the Steve Vais of the world and the Yngwie Malmsteens and Randy Rhoads and all these things. And so guitar playing for me was wanting to be a guitar player like that, you know, all over the fretboard. The thing to understand about purpose in playing guitar, or let's even span this out a little bit, because I know some of you probably out there have wonderful vocals, wonderful voices, which I do not have, okay? But I'm sure some of you do, and some of you probably have incredible writing skills, or maybe you play piano, or maybe you play percussion, or other things too, right? So the big thing to understand is that music isn't just about one thing. It's not just about soloing. And it's not just about theory, and it's not just about a style of music, okay? The key to having purpose in and I'm going to talk specifically about guitar because that's why we're here, but the key is to find something that you enjoy that makes you want to pick up the guitar every day. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be times when you're playing that you're not going to get frustrated. Of course you are. With anything in life we get frustrated with. But there can still be joy even in that frustration. So what I want you to think about is don't just focus on the things that you cannot do or that you wish you could do that you can't do. It's okay to kind of have two paths, I think, about when it comes to guitar playing. There's where you are and what you're capable of doing, and the small surroundings of that, like the small reaches of things that might get you to another level, if you will. And then there's over here, this is all of the dreams and aspirations that we have to do all kinds of different things, right? So the most important thing is developing those two things. And I'm going to use my oldest daughter as an example. So I just told you how when I was growing up, everything that I was doing, I wanted to be a really great guitar player, and I wanted to do all these things that my guitar heroes were doing. And my guitar heroes at that time, of course, in the 80s were astonishing, right? I mean, they were tough shoes to try and fill by any means. Now we move to my being married, having kids, and my oldest daughter, who is incredibly talented in her own right. She's an amazing singer. She wanted to learn how to do some guitar stuff. So I taught her some chords, and she grew up, she's 21 now, so she grew up right at the time when like Taylor Swift was becoming popular and that whole thing. And then there was Ed Sheeran and whatever. So she's always kind of been in this area of kind of folk guitar playing, if you will, acoustic guitar playing kind of thing. And so her purpose with this instrument is very different than my purpose when I was learning how to play. She didn't have any thoughts in her mind of wanting to be Eddie Van Halen or Yngwie Malmsteen or whatever it might be. You get the point. That doesn't mean that her journey is any less fulfilling or interesting or warranted than mine, right? As long as she's doing what is making her happy or is fulfilling whatever musical elements that she needs, who am I to say, right? And so when it comes to guitar lessons, that's the way I've always approached guitar lessons, certainly when I used to do private lessons and things like that, is it's not about me having a certain agenda that I'm trying to, give to a student that they need to try and, reach this because this is what I want or something like that. I never even used books. You can ask any of my students, which there's probably some on here right now. I never used books. All I would do is the student would come in, I would talk to them, figure out what it is that I could do to have that guitar become purposeful for them in a motivational way so they would want to practice, right? So figure out what it is that they like, what it is that they'd like to learn how to do on the instrument. And of course, over time, those wants and interests sometimes will morph into other things because the more you dive into the instrument, all of a sudden you find there's other things, right? Other things that you want to try and study. And so it just kind of keeps going and going. And so what I want you to understand, and this is the reason why I wanted to just do this really quick, is that if you are struggling with certain aspects of your playing, and remember these two paths, there's the path of where you are now and any immediate elements that you could adopt into your path, okay? And then there's over here, which is the long-term things that you want to learn how to do, but they're not immediate, right? Just keep that in mind as I say this. So the trick to, in my opinion, to developing purpose is figuring out what you can do with this guitar that can be fulfilling today or tomorrow. And that could be something as simple as learning new things on the guitar, right? Learning a new style on the guitar, or learning new chords on the guitar, or adopting a different practice regimen than you're used to doing. Even though you might be frightened to leave your old practice regimen because you're worried about the long-term development, and I get that, okay? I'm just saying, think about that a little bit. So you could start with some of those things, okay? Just trying something different songs, different style, okay? Different practice regimen, okay? Another thing that I would strongly recommend to every single person that's here, hey, Andre, every single person that's here is with the technology we have in 2022 right now, you have such amazing capability of being able to write and record your own things. Maybe it's not for release or, you're going to put it on YouTube or Facebook. Maybe it's just something that creates purpose for you. You sit down and you write something and you record it. And it doesn't have to be perfectly played, and it doesn't have to be recorded perfectly, and you don't have to spend 8 years studying audio recording. And again, don't get me wrong. Long term, you can do whatever you want with your life. But I think it's easy, especially when people like me, when you grow up without that technology, your self-worth is based on how good you are at the instrument. This was my thought process because I didn't know anything else. I didn't sing, and back in the day, I never wrote anything because I was always just playing and we'll get to that too, but playing in other bands and things like that. So my worth was how well I could play on the fretboard, okay? Or lack thereof, right? Yes, this is a live thing. And it would frustrate me. Some days were good, some days I hated the way I played, okay? But at some point I came to realize that I was content with what I was doing. Now that doesn't mean that every day I don't still learn. I'm always learning stuff and I'm always practicing new things. But I've learned to balance that. For me, guitar playing, not just music, but guitar playing is not just how fast I am or how many scales I know, but it's phrasing and melody and dynamics and different kinds of things like that. And it's songwriting, which I love to do. So this is why I'm saying this, is sometimes maybe for some of you out there, your purpose, you've been thinking your purpose is one thing, but maybe it's something else. Maybe you thought it was theory, or maybe, and again, don't get me wrong, it's all good, all of it is. I'm just telling you, maybe you thought it was something, and now you're finding out that maybe it's something else, right? So maybe it's writing. Maybe you sit down and you just take some chords and you start playing, and you record that, and then you start singing, and Andre or Steve or Kim or Mirko or Dorian, I'm just seeing these names right here of people, maybe they have amazing voices, but they've been focusing merely on their guitar skills, and all of a sudden they record this thing and they're singing and they go, wow, that was very amazing and it was therapeutic. And I'm nervous about people hearing my voice and whatever. And again, this isn't about you going public with it. I'm just telling you as a person how to find purpose and how to feel good about what it is that you're doing. Okay? So it might be something like that, or maybe you just record a basic chord thing and then you start putting a little melody to it, or maybe that leads to you learning about audio production or bass playing, or it could be all kinds of different things. But now we're in the world of creation, right? We're in the world of composition, which could be something that maybe you started over here and didn't even realize that this existed, right? Or singing, maybe you started with this. And here's my point. You don't want to feel like a failure because you started doing arpeggios or sweeps or something and you wound up realizing you have a wonderful voice and you have a wonderful knack for writing songs, and now you feel like you're failing because you're not working on your sweeps. You see what I'm saying? There's room for all of those things, but at the end of the day, what we always have to remember is there's only so much time in a day, in a week, in a month, in our life to do the things that we want to do. And so, when I was a kid, I couldn't see past scales and speed and whatever. And I'm glad that I did that stuff. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad I had time to do it, and I'm glad I developed those things. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that there's a lot of other elements about music and about guitar playing that I am just really excited about. So creating that purpose isn't just about how much you practice a day or what particular skills. Now, again, I can see even with the comments I'm getting here that there's some people that are saying, about speed picking or whatever. And again, don't get me wrong, those are important things for some of you, not for my daughter, right? And it's perfectly okay that it's not. What I'm saying to you, that for those of you that are asking about those things, is that you want to keep developing those. That's your secondary path. But you also want to figure out how to make this first path, this primary path right here, this immediate path, if you will, okay? How to make this thing, this guitar playing thing, motivational and pleasurable for yourself, so you do it now, right? Because the thing is, and I'm even seeing this, Blake says, not enough time with kids in a business, Blake says, okay? And that's exactly my point, is it's very easy for us to take the guitar and put it on the back burner, or take this music thing that we love so much and put it on the back burner because we have so many other things to do. Where maybe what we could do is rethink what we're doing with this music thing, this guitar thing, whatever it is for you, and not force ourselves to think about it as a 5-hour experience every single day. Again, if you can, that's great. But if you can't, and all you're doing is basing your self-worth on the fact that you are not getting the amount of time, therefore you cannot do this, well, that's a failure attitude, isn't it? So what's going to happen is if you adopt that attitude, you're not going to play. And then you're going to feel bad about yourself, and you're going to feel bad about your playing, and then your guitar gets shoved under the bed or put in the closet, and you're done, So you have to be careful with this because there's so many facets of playing. Now let's go to that part too. You could get together with a neighbor and jam. Even though long term you want to be in a band and you want to do whatever and that sort of thing, and I think that's wonderful. But because right now in your life, that's not where you are, you could do something else. Get together with a cousin or a friend or a relative or a neighbor or whatever, and at least find some way of interacting musically. Maybe it's just jamming. Maybe it's just listening to music. Maybe it's, who knows what it is, right? I can't say that for you. The next thing you might do is you might get involved in some sort of musical element, right? Maybe it's not playing on the stage that you want. Maybe it's jamming with friends in a garage. Maybe it's playing at church. Maybe it's playing for some sort of, local function on a monthly basis. Maybe it's going to a jam and start, getting to know people at your local music jams and maybe see if there's somebody that you connect with. There's lots of different things that you can do to try and get into the scene. I'm not going to use his name, but there's a gentleman that I know who is older than I am that wants to do a band thing. And we get together and we talk about guitar and talk about playing and all that sort of thing. And a couple weeks ago, and again, I'm not going to name his name. I don't know if he's here or not, but he said to me, he goes, I think I want to try out for School of Rock. Do you think I'm good enough? And I said, I emphatically think you are good enough, right? Because what is good enough? See, this is the whole thing. We keep putting ourselves into this pit of despair, if you know the movie, because we never think we're good enough. So he got the courage to go to the School of Rock and try out and did great. And now he's going to be playing with some other players around his age, and they're going to be playing songs, and he's super excited. And that makes me feel good, because that's what this is about, you see? So it isn't about his daily practice. It isn't about his practice routine. It's about him finding a purpose, even though it might be a different purpose than he originally thought it was going to be, right? I love to tell this story too. Many years ago, I had this student who was a metalhead, wonderful kid, but he wasn't quite ready for the music that he wanted to play. A lot of times I find that my metal students are always the ones that put themselves up against a wall. They'll try things. They're always trying to play songs that are too hard. You've probably heard me talk about like ego and project songs. Ego songs are songs that make you feel good. Maybe you don't learn them all the way through or learn all the parts exactly, but you play them and keeps you motivated, right? And if you don't know what that is, you can always go on YouTube and look that up. Project songs are songs that you purposely are trying to learn to work on this secondary path, this future path. And a lot of my metal students are always trying songs that are always too difficult for them. If I had to choose a group of people, it's them. Well, he was that. So he'd always be frustrated with himself trying to play songs. And I'm like, look, it's okay, but let's try some different things. Keep doing what you're doing, but let's find some other stuff. We started exploring some blues stuff. And for whatever reason, this was, again, probably 25 years ago, for whatever reason, it made sense in his brain. And it made sense in his fingers. And it made sense on the guitar. And he wound up becoming an amazing blues guitar player that wound up moving to Hawaii. And I haven't heard from him for a while now, but last I heard he was still there and he was still playing in bands in Hawaii, and that's what he did with his life. And that's pretty cool. He found a purpose. Did he give up on the other thing? I wouldn't say it's giving up. I think it's growing up. I think it's just figuring out what works. Now, again, I know somebody might take offense to that. I still play metal to this day. Look at me, for God's sakes. But I just understand that there's more things. There's a lot of other things about music that can make me happy and that I love to explore, and it isn't just one style of music or one element of my guitar playing. So that's what I wanted to go live and just talk to you about a little bit, because what I never want to happen to anybody here is to stop playing guitar. I don't want you to stop playing guitar. I don't want you to stop writing music. I don't want you to stop playing in a band if you love that, or whatever it might be, because there's life, right? There's your family and your career and your job or whatever it is that you do. But you can find a way of making this purposeful without overwhelming yourself. And hopefully at some point you can still work on this long-term play, right? But I think what happens with a lot of people is you start realizing that that long-term play maybe wasn't the play that was intended for you. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe your play is that you have this incredible gift for melody, or you have this incredible gift for songwriting, or you have this incredible gift for singing, or whatever it might be. And you just were thinking that it was this, but maybe it was something over here, right? So something to think about a little bit, all right? So everybody take care, and of course, stay positive and keep practicing, and I'll talk to you all soon. Thank you for being here, everybody.